What if the reason your prayers feel empty isn't because God is distant, but because you were never taught how to truly connect with Him? Millions of people pray every single day. They repeat words, they ask for help, they beg for answers. But when the prayer ends, the loneliness is still there, the anxiety is still heavy, and the silence feels unbearable, because somewhere along the way, prayer became a ritual instead of a relationship. People learned how to speak at God, but never how to walk with Him, never how to pause, never how to listen, never how to open their heart without fear, performance, or religious masks. But real prayer changes everything, not because the words are perfect, but because the connection becomes real. It becomes raw, personal, alive. Suddenly, God is no longer a distant idea you talk to during emergencies. He becomes the presence that walks with you through fear, confusion, heartbreak, and uncertainty. And that changes a person from the inside out. Tonight, you're about to discover a truth that could completely transform your spiritual life. Prayer was never meant to be a speech. It was meant to be a conversation, a sacred moment where your soul stops pretending and finally becomes honest before God. And once that happens, you may never pray the same way again. The biggest mistake people make in prayer is believing they have to sound perfect for God to listen. So they carefully choose religious words. They repeat memorized phrases. They try to sound holy, calm, and emotionally controlled. But meanwhile, their real heart stays hidden. The fear stays hidden. The anger stays hidden. The disappointment, loneliness, confusion, and exhaustion, all buried behind spiritual performance. But God was never searching for polished speeches. He was searching for truth. Because the Creator who formed your soul already knows every thought you're trying to hide. He sees the tears nobody else notices, the silent battles, the anxiety you smile through, the nights you feel completely drained. So why pretend with the one who already knows? Real prayer begins the moment the mask falls off, the moment you stop performing and start being honest. That's when prayer becomes powerful. Not when your words sound impressive, but when your heart becomes real. Imagine a friendship where one person talks non-stop, but never truly opens up, never listens, never becomes vulnerable. That relationship would feel distant. And that's exactly how many people treat prayer. They rush through it, throw requests toward heaven, then immediately run back into distraction. But deep connection with God grows differently. It grows through stillness, through honesty, through presence. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is not long at all. Sometimes it's just one broken sentence whispered through tears. God, I can't do this without you. And in that raw moment, something changes. Because transformation never begins with performance. It begins with sincerity. Everything changes the moment you stop treating prayer like a scheduled religious activity and start treating it like a real relationship. Because talking with God means inviting Him into every part of your life, not just the moments when everything falls apart. Most people only pray during emergencies, when the bills feel overwhelming, when anxiety hits at 2 a.m., when relationships break, when life becomes too heavy to carry alone. But real connection with God is built in the ordinary moments too, while driving to work, while sitting in silence, before a difficult conversation, during moments of fear, uncertainty, and emotional exhaustion. That's where prayer becomes personal, not rehearsed, not formal, real. You stop trying to sound spiritual and start speaking honestly. God, I'm overwhelmed. God, I'm trying my best. God, I need peace in my mind. And those simple words create something powerful, intimacy. Because God never needed perfect vocabulary. He wanted your real heart. And the more naturally you talk with Him, the more you begin noticing His presence everywhere. in unexpected peace during stressful moments, in strength that arrives when you thought you were done, in quiet wisdom guiding your decisions, in doors opening at exactly the right time, in the storm inside your mind finally becoming still. Suddenly, faith stops feeling distant and complicated. It becomes alive, personal, constant, and little by little, you realize something beautiful. The more you walk with God daily, the less alone you feel in this world. Here's the part about prayer that most people never learn. Prayer is not just speaking, it's listening. And that changes everything. Because we live in a world addicted to noise, phones buzzing every minute, music filling every silence, endless scrolling, constant distraction. Most people are surrounded by sound all day long, yet internally feel more disconnected than ever. Why? Because silence has become uncomfortable. But throughout life, some of the deepest moments with God happen in stillness. Not always through a loud voice from heaven, but through peace settling into your spirit, through wisdom rising inside your heart, through clarity appearing where confusion once lived. God often speaks quietly, through conviction, through direction, through a sudden calm that makes no logical sense. But many people never notice it, because the moment prayer ends, they rush right back into chaos. No reflection, no waiting, no listening. Imagine calling someone you love, talking non-stop for 10 minutes, then hanging up before they say a single word. That's how many people approach prayer. But powerful prayer requires stillness, even if only for a few moments. No performance, no pressure, no rehearsed speeches, just silence, just presence. And something incredible begins happening there. Your breathing slows, your thoughts untangle. The anxiety inside your chest starts loosening its grip. And suddenly, you realize God was never far away. The noise in your mind was simply drowning him out. Because sometimes the greatest answers don't arrive through louder words, but through quieter hearts. Here's the truth about prayer that changes everything. Prayer is not only meant to change your circumstances, it's meant to change you. Because sometimes God removes the storm, and sometimes he builds strength inside the person standing in the middle of it. That's why effective prayer goes deeper than asking for blessings, opportunities, or solutions. Real prayer creates transformation from the inside out. Little by little, your thinking begins to shift. Your reactions begin to change. The things that once controlled your emotions start losing their power. Fear doesn't dominate you the same way. Anger softens. Anxiety stops feeling unstoppable. Your perspective expands beyond temporary pain. And over time, you begin noticing something incredible. The same situations that once stole your peace can no longer break you the same way they used to. Why? Because prayer has been rebuilding your inner world, quietly, consistently, moment by moment. This is why consistency matters so much, not because God demands religious performance, but because relationships grow through connection. Even 5 honest minutes with God can completely shift the atmosphere inside your mind, especially when you stop trying to impress him and finally start trusting him. Talk openly, listen quietly, keep showing up. Because spiritual strength is not built in one dramatic moment. It's built conversation by conversation, day by day, prayer by prayer. And one day, you'll realize the greatest miracle wasn't only the situation changing, it was the person you became while praying through it. Maybe right now, someone listening feels spiritually exhausted. You've prayed, you've waited, you've cried in silence when nobody else saw it. And deep inside, a painful question keeps echoing. Why does God feel so silent? That feeling can shake a person, because silence tests faith in ways comfort never can. When prayers seem unanswered, when nothing changes, when heaven feels quiet, it's easy to assume God has disappeared. But silence does not always mean absence. Sometimes God is working in places you cannot yet see, just like roots grow underground long before a tree becomes visible above the surface. Spiritual growth often happens invisibly first. There are seasons where God shapes your character before he changes your circumstances. Seasons where patience is built, trust is strengthened, depth is formed. And during those difficult moments, many people walk away too early, not realizing that breakthrough may be closer than they think. Because some prayers are answered instantly, others unfold slowly over time, and some prayers transform you internally before they ever transform your environment. So if you feel tired, don't stop talking with God. Especially then, keep showing up even when emotions fluctuate. Keep praying even when clarity hasn't arrived. Keep listening even when silence feels heavy, because some of the deepest spiritual breakthroughs happen right after the moment people almost give up. And sometimes the strongest kind of faith is simply continuing the conversation when you still don't have all the answers. Because real relationship grows strongest when it survives the silence. So here's the truth that could completely change the way you pray forever. God was never waiting for a perfect performance. He was waiting for a real connection, not rehearsed speeches filled with religious language, not polished words designed to sound spiritual, not endless rituals done out of pressure or habit. He simply wanted you, your honest thoughts, your hidden fears, your exhausted heart, your real emotions. Because prayer was never meant to feel like a burden you barely survive. It was meant to become the safest place your soul could return to. A place where anxiety begins losing its grip, where loneliness no longer feels so overwhelming, where confusion slowly turns into clarity, where broken people rediscover strength they thought they lost forever. And maybe tonight, something shifts inside you. Maybe for the first time in years, you stop trying to impress God and finally become honest with him. No mask, no pretending, no performance, just truth, just connection, just a real conversation. And sometimes that single moment of honesty changes everything. Because real prayer is not about sounding powerful, it's about becoming open. So the next time life feels heavy, don't just rush through another routine prayer. Slow down, breathe deeply, speak honestly, sit quietly, listen carefully, and begin talking with God instead of only talking to him. Because some of the most life-changing conversations you will ever experience don't begin with noise, they begin in silence.